She said it like a challenge, half a joke, half a warning. The kind of line people throw when they want to sound untouchable, but their eyes give away that they're curious to see who might actually try. I didn't plan to. God knows I didn't need another storm disguised as a person. But something in her tone, the way her laugh wrapped around the words, the way she leaned back just enough to make it seem like she wasn't waiting for an answer, made me say it anyway. Try me. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. She heard it, and for a second, her smile faltered, not because she was offended, but because she didn't expect someone to mean it. Her name was Maya, and she worked 2 tables down from mine at the little downtown cafe where I spent my evenings pretending to work on designs but mostly people watching. She was the kind of person who made noise just by existing, bracelets clinking, laughter spilling, eyes that noticed everything but pretended to care about nothing. We traded glances for weeks, harmless at first, that small, polite smile between strangers who keep showing up in the same place. Then one day, she sat down across from me uninvited, holding her coffee like it was a peace offering. "You always stare like you're calculating people," she said. I blinked. "Maybe I am. Figure me out then. Is that an invitation or a trap?" She smirked. "Both." That was Maya, always turning questions into dares. She told me she worked in advertising but hated the word selling. Said she'd rather translate chaos into color. I told her I was an architect and she said, "So you design cages people want to live in?" I should have found her exhausting. Instead, she made the air feel alive, unpredictable in the best kind of way. We started meeting there without meaning to. She'd show up after her meetings. I'd pretend to still be sketching. Some days we'd talk for hours, other days barely say anything. But there was always that undercurrent, a tension disguised as humor. Like the evening she leaned back in her chair, looked at me over her cup, and said it. "You could never handle me." There was no arrogance in her voice, just quiet certainty, like she'd tested too many people before and knew how it always ended. I could have laughed it off, let her win whatever invisible game she was playing. But something about that moment felt too sharp, too alive. So I said, "Try me." Now she was the one who froze, eyes narrowing, lips curving like she couldn't decide whether to laugh or run. The next day, she didn't show up. I told myself it was nothing, but my sketches stayed blank that evening. The cafe felt heavier without her voice bouncing off the walls. Then, 3 days later, I found a note under my coffee cup. Just 2 words. "Nice try." No signature. No explanation. But the handwriting was hers. It became a pattern. She'd vanish for days, then reappear like a spark. Sometimes she'd talk nonstop. Sometimes she'd just sit and draw on napkins. I never knew which version of her I'd get, and maybe that was the point. Once I asked her why she disappeared. She shrugged. "I like people better in small doses." "You allergic to consistency?" I asked. She smiled. "I'm allergic to expectations." I wanted to tell her she was full of contradictions, that her freedom looked an awful lot like fear. But I didn't. I just kept showing up, hoping she'd keep doing the same. One evening, after a long silence, she said something that stuck with me. "Most people want to be loved like a song." Repeated, remembered. "I just want to be felt once, properly." I looked at her, really looked at her. "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard." She smirked, but her eyes didn't. "It's honest." And that was Maya, laughter on her lips, sadness hiding just beneath. The first time we met outside the cafe, it wasn't planned. I saw her walking by the riverside, wind in her hair, headphones on. I called her name without thinking. She turned, pulled one earbud out, and grinned. "You follow all your puzzles around the city?" "Only the ones that leave notes." She laughed and started walking again. I fell into step beside her. We walked for an hour without a plan, through the park, across the bridge, into quiet streets that felt like they belonged to no one. She talked about everything. Her dog back home, the cities she wanted to escape to, the art she never showed anyone. Then she asked, You ever get tired of being steady? What do you mean? You seem like the kind of person who's always the calm in the storm. Don't you ever want to be the storm? I smiled. Maybe I just build things so I don't fall apart. She looked at me like she saw something I hadn't said yet. Then she said softly, You can never handle me, you know. I looked straight ahead, feeling that same pull again. You keep saying that like it's a warning. It is. And yet here we are. Yeah, she said, a faint smile playing on her lips. Here we are. When we reached the corner, she stopped. Don't walk me home, she said. Why not? Because if you do, I might not let you leave. And just like that, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing in the soft glow of streetlights, half smiling, half wondering what exactly I just stepped into. That night, I couldn't stop replaying her voice. Not the words, the tone. The one that said she wanted to be chased, but didn't believe anyone would. The next day, I showed up at the cafe early. She was already there, sketching something on a napkin. You're late, she said without looking up. I'm 20 minutes early. Exactly. She glanced up, a teasing spark in her eyes. Means I've already won. Won what? She leaned in slightly. Whatever game you think we're not playing. I laughed, shaking my head. You're impossible. And you're still here. She was right. I was. That evening stretched into night. The cafe lights dimmed, the noise faded, but neither of us moved. We talked about everything. The past we never fixed, the fears we didn't name, the versions of ourselves we buried under jokes and work. When she finally stood to leave, she looked at me and said softly, Be careful, okay? Of what? Of thinking you can fix people like me. I wanted to tell her I wasn't trying to fix her. I just wanted to know her. But she was already walking away, her reflection fading in the window glass. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't a storm to handle. She was the quiet after, the kind that leaves everything changed. I didn't see Maya for 4 days after that night. 4 days felt longer than they should have, the cafe quieter, the air too still. I kept telling myself I wasn't waiting, just showing up like usual. But every time the door opened, my eyes went to it before I could stop them. On the 5th day, she walked in. No smile, no teasing this time, just that quiet energy that made the room tilt a little. She was wearing a gray sweater and had her sketchbook clutched against her chest. When she reached my table, she didn't ask if the seat was taken. She just sat down. You disappeared, I said finally. I do that, she answered, voice soft but steady. You okay? She looked down at her hands. Yeah. Just had to untangle a few things. I didn't push. She opened her sketchbook and turned it toward me. A messy charcoal drawing filled the page. The river, the bridge, a figure standing alone at the corner. That's me, I said quietly. She nodded. You stood there longer than I expected. You were watching? I always look back. There was a pause. Then I said, You don't make it easy for people to stay, do you? I make it easy for them to leave, she whispered. Something in the way she said it made my chest tighten. So I did the only thing that felt right. I didn't say anything. I just reached across the table and turned the page in her sketchbook. On the next one, she'd drawn an unfinished skyline, half eraser marks, half imagination. It's not done, she said. Neither are we. She looked up sharply, as if the words had come too close. But she didn't look away. You still think you can handle me? I think I already am. Her eyes softened for the first time. She didn't smile. Didn't laugh. Just breathed in slowly, like she hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath for weeks. We sat in that silence until the cafe lights dimmed again. When we stepped outside, the city had slipped into that gold hour glow, the one that makes even strangers look familiar. Walk me home, she said. I hesitated, remembering the last time. She noticed. Different night, she said quietly. Different ending. So we walked. The streets were quieter now, the sounds of the city fading into the hum of distant traffic. She told me little things this time, that she hated the sound of clocks, that she always left movies 10 minutes before they ended, that she'd once spent an entire summer learning to whistle just because her father couldn't. Every sentence felt like a piece of a puzzle she didn't trust anyone else to touch. At her building, she stopped. "This is me," she said, though I already knew. She leaned against the railing, looking up at the faded letters on the brick. "You ever notice how the city looks different when you're walking someone home? Because you're not thinking about where you're going," I said. "You're thinking about how long you can make it last." She smiled then, not her usual sharp grin, but something smaller, realer. "You think too much," she whispered. "You feel too much," I replied. "Dangerous combination." "Maybe." I stepped closer, not enough to touch, but close enough to feel the static between us. "But it's real." She didn't move away. For a long moment, we just stood there, eyes locked in the low light. The world outside blurred until there was only her, the smell of rain on her hair, the uneven rhythm of her breathing. Then she looked down and said quietly, "I don't let people in. I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you doing?" "Standing here, hoping you don't ask me to leave." Something flickered in her eyes, something unguarded. Then, slowly, she reached up and brushed her thumb against the collar of my shirt, a simple gesture, but it sent every thought spinning. "You're trouble," she murmured. "So are you." She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that trembles at the edge of something deeper. "Don't say I didn't warn you." Then she stepped back toward the door, hand resting on the handle. "Good night, steady man." "Maya?" She turned. "Next time, don't disappear." She didn't answer. Just smiled faintly and went inside. I stood there long after the door closed, watching her shadow move behind the curtain until the light went out. Over the next few weeks, we found our rhythm again. Only this time, it wasn't the same. She texted occasionally, always something short but full of her. "You'd hate the art exhibit I just saw. Coffee still tastes better when you're arguing with someone. Do you ever stop thinking?" Each message was a thread, a reminder she was still there. One Saturday, she sent another one. "You're not busy, right?" Before I could reply, another text came. "Good. Meet me at the pier in 20. The pier was almost empty when I got there, just a handful of people, the sky smeared with the colors of a fading sunset. She was sitting on the railing, legs swinging, hair tangled by the wind. "Hey," I said, walking up. She looked at me, then out at the water. "You ever think about how much weight a word can hold?" "Depends on the word." "Try almost," she said. "It ruins everything and saves nothing." I smiled. "You okay, philosopher?" She shrugged. "Just thinking too much." "Now who's stealing my lines?" She laughed, really laughed this time, and it felt like the sun breaking through clouds. We sat there until the sky turned dark. She leaned her head against my shoulder, the kind of closeness that doesn't ask permission. I didn't move. Neither of us said a word. When she finally lifted her head, she said softly, "You scare me." "Why?" "Because I like you in a way that makes me forget to keep my walls up." I looked at her, the wind carrying away everything I might have said. "Maybe you don't need them," I whispered. Her eyes met mine, and for a second, everything else, the noise, the city, the water, disappeared. Then she smiled that half-smile again, the one that always meant she was both daring me and protecting herself at the same time. "Careful," she said. "You're getting close to handling me." "Maybe that's the point." She tilted her head, studying me like she was trying to decide whether to stay or run. Then she whispered, "Try me." That night didn't end with a kiss. It ended with silence, the kind that hums with all the things you almost say. When I got home, her words replayed over and over. "Try me." Simple. Dangerous. An invitation wrapped in armor. The next few days blurred. Work. Coffee. Noise. But every ordinary moment had her shadow in it. When the light hit a window just right, I'd think of how it caught her hair. When a song played too long on the radio, I'd think of her humming without realizing. She'd gotten into my head quietly, like a song that didn't need lyrics to stay there. She texted again 3 nights later. I'm painting. Bring music. No address, no time, no explanation. Just that. I knew what it meant. Her studio, the one above the florist's shop, all wood floors and paint-stained light. When I got there, she was barefoot, standing in front of a half-finished canvas. There were streaks of blue and crimson across it, like chaos trying to become something beautiful. Her hair was tied up, her wrists smudged with color. You brought music? She asked without turning. Yeah. I held up my phone. What do you want? Something that doesn't talk too much. So I played a soft instrumental track. Slow piano, low strings, something that felt like rain over glass. She didn't speak again for a while. Just painted, movements sharp but graceful, her breathing syncing with the rhythm of the music. I sat on the floor against the wall, watching the way light spilled across her shoulders, how her brush seemed to move with purpose even when she looked lost. After a while, she said quietly, You always watch like you're trying to understand what can't be explained. Maybe I am. She smiled faintly, still facing the canvas. That's dangerous. So is hiding. That made her pause. She lowered the brush, turned toward me. You think I hide? I think you run, I said. You run from anything that feels too real. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but like she was deciding whether to fight me or tell the truth. I don't run, she said finally. I move. To where? To places that don't ask questions. Then why did you text me? That stopped her. She looked down at her hands, pain streaked across her fingers, and whispered, Because you don't try to fix me. I'm not trying to fix you. I know, she said, lifting her eyes to mine. That's why I keep coming back. The air between us shifted. That invisible line we'd been pretending didn't exist began to blur. I stood and walked closer. Not close enough to touch. Just close enough to see the flecks of green in her brown eyes. Maya. Yeah? Finish the painting. She looked at me, confused. Finish it. Then tell me what it means. She hesitated, then turned back to the canvas, brush trembling just slightly. Her strokes were slower now, more deliberate. The red softened into gold, the blue melted into gray. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't even neat, but it felt alive. When she finally stopped, she stepped back. The painting was 2 figures standing apart in a storm. Not facing each other, not touching, but both looking at the same point of light in the distance. What's it about? I asked quietly. Timing, she said. I waited. 2 people who met when they weren't ready, she added. But somehow, the storm didn't wash them away. Her voice broke on the last word. I didn't say anything. Just stepped forward and reached out, not to pull her close, not yet, just to take the brush from her hand. My fingers brushed hers. She didn't move. Her eyes lifted, glassy in the lamplight. You should go, she whispered, but it didn't sound like she meant it. Do you want me to? Her lips parted. No. I set the brush down gently, the sound of it against the table small but final. She took a breath, stepped closer until the space between us felt like a held note. You said you could handle me, she murmured. I'm still saying it. Then stop standing still. Her words hung there, half challenge, half confession. I moved closer until her breath brushed my collarbone. My heart was pounding so loud it felt reckless. Her hand came up, hesitated, then landed lightly against my chest. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from everything that had been waiting. I don't do easy, she whispered. Good, I said, voice low. Neither do I. For a second, she closed her eyes, a long, shaky exhale, then opened them again, softer now, unguarded in a way that made her look almost fragile. I don't know what this is, she said. It doesn't have to be anything yet. She smiled faintly. You make it sound simple. It's not, I said. But it's real. The music kept playing, the same soft piano piece looping quietly behind us, as if the world knew this moment needed something to hold it together. She leaned forward, not for a kiss, but to rest her forehead lightly against mine. The smallest contact, yet it felt like everything shifted. "Try me," she whispered again, softer this time. "Not a dare anymore. A promise." Later that night, I drove home in silence. The city lights blurred through the windshield, and all I could think was how wrong it felt to leave her studio empty. When I got home, I found paint on my hand, a faint streak of gold she must have left when she touched me. I didn't wash it off. The next morning, she texted, "Don't overthink it. Just come by tomorrow. I'll make coffee." No emojis. No punctuation. Just that. I smiled, because she'd never asked me to come back before. And somehow, that said more than anything she'd ever painted. The next morning, the city was still half asleep when I reached her place. Maya's studio always smelled like coffee and turpentine, chaos and comfort tangled together. She was there, sitting by the window with a mug in her hands, sunlight spilling across her knees. Barefoot, hair still messy from sleep. No pretense. No armor. Just her. "You're early," she said, looking up. "You texted morning?" I took it literally. A small smile. "Most people don't." "I'm not most people." "I know," she said softly, and that small pause before her words told me she'd meant it. She poured me a cup and slid it across the table. No sugar, no milk. Just black, the way she'd remembered from that first night. We sat there quietly for a moment. No background music this time, no noise to hide behind. Just the steady hum of the city below, the soft creak of the old floorboards, and the small, shared silence between two people who were running out of excuses not to feel something. She glanced at the painting from last night. It leaned against the wall, unfinished but complete in its own way. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "Why?" Her lips curved slightly. "Because for once, I didn't want the night to end." I looked at her, really looked, and saw it then, the thin layer of fear behind her smile. The same fear that hides behind every moment that feels too real. "You're scared," I said quietly. "Of what?" "Of this." She held my gaze for a moment before whispering, "Maybe I am. Because when something feels this real, it can actually break you. Or fix you." She laughed softly, but it wasn't dismissive this time. More like she wanted to believe me. "I don't even know what we are," she said. "Neither do I admitted. "But maybe that's the point. Maybe we stop naming everything before it even begins." Her eyes softened. "You make things sound easy." "It's not easy," I said, leaning forward slightly. "It's honest." She set her cup down. The air shifted, again, that delicate current of something unspoken. "I don't want perfect," she said quietly. "I want real. Messy, inconvenient, alive. That's all I've got," I said. "That might be enough." For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. Light, hesitant, but deliberate. Her hand was cool from the mug, her thumb tracing over my knuckles slowly, like she was memorizing the moment. "I don't know where this goes," she said, voice trembling just slightly. "Then let's stop worrying about the ending," I said. "Let's just keep showing up." Something in her eyes softened completely then. That wall she carried everywhere cracked just enough for the light to come through. She stood, motioned toward the window. "Come here." I followed. Outside, the city buzzed below, cars, people, 1,000 tiny stories moving in every direction. She looked out for a while, then turned to me. "You ever feel like you're standing still while the whole world moves without you?" "All the time." She nodded. "That's what painting feels like to me. It's the only time I can freeze the noise." "And me?" I asked. "What do I feel like?" She tilted her head, considering. "You feel like movement. The kind that scares me because I don't know where it's taking me." "Then don't fight it." "I'm trying not to." We stood there for a while, sunlight warming the space between us, her shoulder almost touching mine. The city outside kept moving, but for once, neither of us needed to. After a long silence, she said, I lied, you know. About what? That night at the bar. When I said you could never handle me. I smiled faintly. Yeah, I figured. She looked up at me, that half smirk back again, softer now, but still her. You still think you can? I'm not here to handle you, I said. I'm here to understand you. That caught her off guard. Her breath hitched, her voice quieter now. And if I don't make sense? Then I'll still stay. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Raw, unfiltered. She exhaled slowly, then did something she'd never done before. She rested her head against my chest. Not for long. Just long enough to feel the rhythm of another heartbeat beside hers. And in that stillness, everything made sense. No grand confession. No promises. Just two people who'd finally stopped pretending they didn't care. After a while, she whispered, Don't ruin it by saying something poetic. I smiled. Then stop being one. That made her laugh, quietly, genuinely, the kind of laugh that sounds like someone finally exhaling after holding their breath too long. The light shifted again, painting gold across the floorboards. She looked up, eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. So, what now? She asked. No, I said. We finished the painting. Her brows lifted slightly. Together? Yeah. She looked at the blank corner of the canvas, then back at me. You don't even know how to paint. Then teach me. And that was it. No dramatic ending, no perfect line. Just her handing me a brush, both of us standing in front of something unfinished, trying to make sense of it together. The strokes were clumsy, uneven, messy, but they were ours. She laughed once softly. You're terrible at this. Good, I said. Now it's real. Her eyes met mine one last time, a quiet smile playing at the edges. Maybe, she said. You really can handle me after all. And for the first time, I didn't need to answer. Because in that small studio, surrounded by paint, sunlight, and silence, I already had.